We're going to tie a Foxee, Foxe, red with two D's, Clouser. I heard about this from this book. I went and pulled Bob Clouser's book, Clouser flies. It is in the book and calls it a Foxee red minnow. We're going to be tying it on these Daiichi 1750 streamer hooks. This is a 4XL 1X strong hook. And you could tie these down to about a size 10. I'm going to be tying this in a size 10. The main thing about this hook is that it's got a straight eye. If you look at Bob Clouser's book, Clouser Flies, for this particular fly, Bob is using a down eye hook in that book. So we're going to attach some painted lead eyes, some barbell eyes. We're going to start the thread sort of in the middle of the hook and build a bump. And this bump is going to be what we use to seat the eyes on the hook. And then we'll leave the thread behind the bump. We want to seat them on our side of the hook and push them right up against the bump. And then we hold the eye in that position and we take 3 or 4 or 5 wraps over the eye. And we want to turn the eye like it's going to sit perpendicular and make the same number of wraps the other way. Then I usually do a wrap around the shank and then go back, same number of wraps, another wrap around the shank, and back, same number of wraps. I'm using a light Cahill unithread 8/0. So this is a fairly thin thread, and when we get done, take a wrap around the hook shank and then go around underneath the eye, and we just want to pull tight to kind of gather those wraps and tighten them at the bottom of the eyes. And then I usually do one more set of wraps over that and one more set of loops, 2 or 3, 4 loops around there. And then I check my eyes and make sure they're seated. Make sure they're like you want them on the hook shank. Now this is a Foxee red Clouser, so it's tied with a foxtail. And this is a foxtail. And if you notice on the foxtail, I'll try to get some more light over here. If you notice on the foxtail, we've got stripes of black tips, and then we've got lighter colored bands beneath them, and they sort of spiral up the foxtail, if you will. And so what we want to do is we're going to use these lighter colored bands for the underside of the fly, and we're going to use the black tips for the top of the fly. And of course, because this has barbell eyes, it's going to ride upside down. So these eyes are going to be on the bottom. The other thing about this material is it's extremely, extremely filled with underfur. So much so that it can be hard to push scissors down through there. So I'm going to get to some of these lighter colored tips here and try to kind of separate them. Take my hair scissors, and I'm going to push my hair scissors down to the base. Now, this material is very fine and it has a lot of underfur. So you need to cut off a bigger chunk than you think that you would need. A much larger chunk of hair than you would use for spinning deer hair or for tying a Clouser. You'll see in just a minute why. And then we're going to cut this out. And you can see already, if you look at this clump, you can see how much underfur it's got. Now, I usually use, and I will in a minute, use just a little, this is an old mustache comb, but I got one of these dog brushes and hold this. We want just the guard hair, so we want to strip out all of this underfur. And you see in just a second, I'm starting with an empty dog brush, and notice this just has a huge amount of underfur in it. It actually reminds me of brushing an old German Shepherd we had. And then what I do on it, once I've gotten it started, is I move further to the tip and I brush it a little more. And then after I have that, look at all that hair that came out of that thing. And that's just a small clump. And then there's still more underfur in there, but we want it all out. What looked like a big clump to start with turns out to be a fairly small clump. And so here we go. We've got our clump of red fox fur. So now I'm going to measure. I want these tips to extend about half a shank length beyond the bend, so about right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this off even. There's a gap on all the Clouser flies between the eyes and where the hair is bound down. So I'm going to put the thread at the start of that gap, and I'm going to take a gathering wrap and a little bit of pressure and a little more pressure. And I'm going forward. And as I go forward, I'm going to increase the pressure until I have this tied down all the way to the eye. And then I'm going to come back. This gap right here that you can see in the fly is in all the Clouser photos in Clouser's book. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the thread behind the eye and I'm going to hold up on the material to keep it on top. I'm going to take 3 or 4 wraps, and then I'm just going to spiral back to just about the hook point, take a couple of wraps, and then cross over coming forward, and I'm going to return my thread to where it is in front, and that's the bottom of the fly. I'm going to flip it over. If you don't have a rotary, you can flip it in the vise. And then I want 2 strands of bronze flashabou. I use the wraparound method, but I don't wrap around the thread. I actually wrap around the top of it. I double it over, get it about in the middle, and once I've done that, I'm going to take it, slide it up the thread, and I want to put this on the bottom and just take a couple of wraps over it to hold it in place. And then what I usually do is I go ahead and split it half and half, 2 strands on either side or there. And then I go ahead and take a couple more wraps over that. And I like to go ahead and cut it off, try to make them a little different lengths. And then I'm going to take 3 strands gold flash. I'm going to do this one like I did the other, wrap it around the tube of the bobbin, then pick up the bobbin and tie it in place on top. Take a couple wraps over to hold it back. While I've got hold of it, I'll go ahead and split it about in half and then take a couple of wraps. And then I'm going to go ahead and shorten these. I want them to stick out a little bit beyond where the hair on the bottom is. This is going to be the top of the fly. And I want some of these black tipped. I feed the scissors in behind it and grab it. Same process as before, the last little bit. And again, I want to match the length with what's on the bottom. Cut it off even, hold it at an angle. Gathering wrap, pull tight, and then wrap in front of the gathering wrap to form the head. A couple of 3 or 4 turn whip finishes. And there's a Foxee red Clouser minnow, and this is the way it rides in the water. Rides with the barbell eyes down.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe for all our videos and tight lines.